This episode is brought to you by Ariston Specialties in Bloomfield, Connecticut, makers of amazing olive oils and other Greek delights. Check them out online at aristonspecialties.com. That's Ariston, Ariston, specialties.com. When I take our mascot, this is my corgi mix, Bonbon, and I take him out for his walk, I'm now wearing a hat. It's like, uh-oh, the weather has changed. And, that got us thinking about stews and soups. And so we thought it'd be kind of fun to, to start that conversation with you. To find our show, by the way, you just look for the all-new Faith Middleton podcast. It has the words all new. That's the new show. And with the all new episodes, the gang. So we've got Chris Prosperi at Metro Beast Restaurant in Simsbury, Connecticut, Carl Franklin, who lives in Quaker Hill, Connecticut, and Joanne Church, who lives in New London, Connecticut. So hey, everybody.
Hey, Faith.
Hi, Faith.
Hi, Faith.
What are you thinking about stews and soups?
This is my time of year.
Is it?
I absolutely love stews and soups, and I have a list of probably, 15 or 20 that I make on a regular basis. One of them I'll give you right now is a tomato soup. And it is literally probably the easiest soup you will ever make in your life. And it
you
really
open a can of Campbell's.
What's that?
I said you open a can of Campbell's.
No, this is a can of whatever tomatoes you get. If you like the San Marinos, whatever. I usually a sale shopper, but 28-ounce cans, and then a little bit of cream, some garlic, salt, pepper, paprika, onion powder, a dash of honey, and Worcestershire, and a couple dashes of Tabasco. All go in a pot.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Only a chef would say it's literally the easiest soup in the world, and then list 25 ingredients.
Yeah, but these aren't hard ingredients, Faith. These are very simple. It's Worcestershire sauce. Everyone I know has that. Some black pepper, salt, garlic, cream or milk, honey. I mean, when I say easy, I usually mean, it's just stuff that you have laying around the house. And for me, those are all things I have laying around the house. But this soup, the cool thing is you don't have to saute anything, steam anything. You literally just put it in a soup pot, let it simmer for 15, 20 minutes tops, and then puree it. I use one of those immersion blenders, but if you can move it to a food processor, or you can just mash it up if you like it chunky with a potato masher. It's that good and that easy. And then make yourself grilled cheese sandwiches, because this time of year, there is nothing better than a grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup. And I tell you, everyone I've given this tomato soup recipe thanks me over and over again, because you literally just chuck the stuff in a pot, make it. And I always give the recipe in a larger amount, because I tell people, if you're going to take some time to make some soup, make an extra quart or so, put it in a container, throw it in the freezer. Because there's nothing better in a cold winter night, right?
We have to post this.
Yes, I'll give you the recipe.
We're going to post this. Yep. We're going to go to the
We post all our recipes, by the way. Well, all the ones that I can.
But I'm just reminding people, who might be joining the show, for the first time after a long time.
And you can get all those recipes and links at faithmiddleton.com.
And Chris, Aldi sells frozen tomato soup. And then it has the grilled cheese on top in the size of like a large crouton.
Nice.
No.
Now that's a great idea. Floating on top.
That is a great idea.
Yes.
Might be hard to eat, though. I like to hold the sandwich and dunk it.
Oh, and dip.
Yes,
right? Are you a dipper?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a dunker. I'm a dipper.
So that's one of my soups.
Okay. So, Joanne, how about you? What soup do you make?
Well, I've been making a lot of chicken soup, because a lot of my friends have been getting COVID. And I just think chicken soup really heals. And my chicken soup is pretty standard with oil, with garlic, onion, carrots, celery. But I also put fresh ginger and turmeric in it, because I think that heats it up a little. which you kind of want when you're congested.
Yes.
And with chicken soup with thighs, with skinless, boneless thighs, and some mixed pepper and some red pepper flakes too, right? Because you want that little heat. And I love, this is the only time I ever eat egg noodles, but it's egg noodles always with chicken soup.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. They have to be sort of wide and a little bit thick so that you have
and
some
soft
bulk
and
in your
squishy.
soup.
But I like
right?
sauteing it. And so at your house, you have the scent of the soup and you really feel like you're helping. And just put it in a jar and send it away. And put some in the freezer
yummy.
for sure.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with more of the all-new Faith Middleton Food Schmooze podcast. I'm Faith Middleton. I'm with Chris Brasberry, Carl Franklin, Joanne Church, and of course, my dog Bonbon's curled up in his bed at my feet. It's a leopard skin bed, by the way. And so he's half Corgi and he's 14. Wow. So he seems to love to come in to the little studio we have set up here. And
He heard you talking about chicken soup. That's why.
He heard the word chicken. Yeah.
Hey, Ricky.
He's not really hungry today. I don't know what the story is. Okay, so I think maybe I have you beat on ease of soup making. And we're going to go to Carl first, but
right.
I think I've got you beat. Okay, go ahead, Carl.
All right, sure. So everybody knows when you make soup that the flavor isn't in the meat. Where is it? It's in the what?
Broth.
Garlic.
In the bones.
Broth.
In the bones. Yeah, the broth that you make from bones. That's right. So I have a starter soup, which is an easy way to make chicken soup, and I think Faith might be onto this one too. But you go get a rotisserie chicken from your supermarket. Okay.
We do like to do this.
Yeah. It's what, $6, right?
Yeah.
You pull off all the meat and you put that aside. Make chicken salad, you make whatever, or you could just save it for the soup. You take everything else, skin, bones, cartilage, everything that isn't meat, and you put it in a pressure cooker with some soup herbs, rosemary, thyme, sage, that kind of stuff, some celery, some carrots, some onion, and water, and crank that sucker up for 2 1-hour sessions, right? You get that bad boy just absolutely sucking out all the gelatin from the bones. And it's weird. Kelly doesn't like it when it's cold because it looks like Jell-O. It's solid.
Chicken Jell-O.
And she's like, oh, what is that? Like, that's your soup.
Hey, Carl, before you go on, kudos on the pressure cooker for chicken soup or chicken stock or bone broth. I don't think a lot of people use their pressure cooker, or we just use the tabletop one, right? Whatever they're called, Instapots or whatever they are.
That's what I have.
The electric ones. And the difference in making that, instead of letting it simmer for, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, if it's a big pot, I mean, to just put that in there and just zap it, basically hit it for a couple hours on high pressure, and the broth that you get out of that is unbeatable.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And we'll talk more about pressure cookers when we get to pork belly and stuff like that. But for now. All right. So that makes the broth, right? Now you can just eat that as your broth, your chicken stock or whatever. What I do is I freeze it, and when I want to make soup, that's my starter stock. So the soup that I'm actually making today is lamb stew.
Ooh.
And when I say actually, it's on the stove right now.
Must smell good.
It's actually simmering. Yeah. When I was a kid, my mom made this, and she called it stick to your ribs stew.
Nice.
It was like a thick tomatoey broth, and it had chunks of lamb. And she even did the English thing, putting peas and French fries.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I don't do that because I'm keto.
Are you going to call it stick to your rib stew?
Carl's stick to your rib lamb stew. That sounds good.
Yeah, you got to have your mother's title
Absolutely.
in there.
Yeah, we'll honor.
Okay.
We'll honor Gail Franklin.
That sounds so
what part
good.
what part of the lamb?
Oh, so I get lamb chops, and sometimes most of the time I'll get the loin chops. Those are the ones that look like a little porterhouse.
Of course, it's my favorite.
So yeah, I get about 12 lamb chops, and I cut the meat off of the bone. And the bones actually will go back in the pressure cooker with the stock. Now, if you really want it to darken up, you can take those bones, put a little olive oil, and roast them. Really, like on 375 for till they get brown, maybe 30 minutes. But you don't really have to go to that extreme. But throw them in there in the crock pot with the stock and extract the goodness out of those bones too. So now it's up to you what kind of veg you want in your lamb stew. I don't do potatoes, but people love potatoes and peas in their lamb stew. Go right ahead. I use mushrooms. Take some chopped mushrooms.
Love mushrooms.
Those go really well with lamb.
Sturdy.
Yeah.
That's right. They hold up. Yeah. So to thicken it, you can use a quarter cup of AP flour, or if you want to go keto, you can use konjac flour or glucomannan powder, it's called. Maybe just a tablespoon of that. But that'll come later when you want to thicken it up.
Yep.
All right. So first, I take some olive oil in a hot pan. I use a Le Creuset. And I sear off the lamb. And I put that in there, and I get it all nice and, brown. Once it's brown, I throw in a combination of 3 to 4 tablespoons of tomato paste, 6 large cloves of garlic crushed up, and here's the secret sauce: 4 anchovy fillets.
Yes. Yes,
What?
I'm so happy to hear that. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because that really goes together.
No Worcestershire sauce?
No, but that would
anchovies.
that would fit the profile, right?
Yeah.
It's glutamates that brings out. And I got that tip from Cook's Illustrated.
Yeah, I did too.
This is the best thing I ever learned from that whole series.
Oh, that's great. That is really great.
So that goes in after you brown the meat, and then you mix that all together and deglaze with, and by the way, we're on like medium to high heat here. You deglaze with a cup of dry red wine. You let that cook a little bit more. Then you throw in your stock and your vegetables and all that stuff, and you just cook it down. You just let it simmer until it gets to the consistency that where the flavor, it doesn't even need any more salt, right? Because you've got some salt in some of these things. But when it gets the consistency you want, if you want to thicken it up, you can use that flour or that konjac flour, and then salt and pepper to taste. And man, go to town.
Simple but good.
Stick to your ribs.
Wow. Okay. This really is the all new Food Schmooze podcast. That was great, that recipe. Hey,
Thank you.
So here's why mine is the easiest, because I order online.
860.
Wait a minute.
First, you get in the car.
Stop the presses.
Okay.
Front page news. Faith Middleton orders food online.
No. So I go online and I order cans of Wolf brand chili.
Oh.
It is fantastic.
I've had it.
Oh my God, it's fantastic. Anything I put with this chili is, and it's, it's a little bit liquidy. It's not too liquidy. But the flavors in this chili are just fantastic. If you want to add extra meat, you can, but it's sort of all chopped up chili meat, and it is, and so I will put absolutely anything in the soup or the stew. I'll look at it and I'll think, oh, I want something hearty. And so I'll throw in macaroni. Sometimes I'll throw in some vegetable that's hanging around and it looks a little piquant in the refrigerator. I'm just like, chop it up and throw it in there because it's going to be fine, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. And it is absolutely, it's delicious.
Yeah.
Wolf brand chili.
Yeah. I'll second that.
It has no beans, right?
No beans.
I'll
no.
second that. Faith turned me on to that years ago, and I keep it in my pantry now because she's right. I don't eat it straight like she was saying. You doctor it and you add stuff to it, and it is one of the best bases to start with that I've ever had in a canned product.
Wow.
And it's funny because I'd never heard of it until she said it. And you'll see the can in the supermarket. I've walked by it 100 times and just never picked it up until she's, you know what I find? The big like the big chain stores don't usually have it. But if you go to IGAs, like your little local IGA, like the one here in town, they have it. And a couple IGAs out in the Litchfield County where I live also have it. So it's like one of those products that maybe the big brand stores don't have, but the small
Be down south, right? Because isn't it a Texas product?
Yes, it is. It is a Texas
Yeah.
product.
And if you're up in the Arctic, wolf chili is a whole different thing, right?
Yeah.
Look, she has it.
Joanne has it.
Yeah,
That's
look at that.
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
But and you know, some people like beans in their chili. I'm not a fan of beans in my chili.
But you could add beans, right?
I was just going to say, sure, you can. You can do anything you want. You could put corn. You could do absolutely anything that you have hanging around in the freezer.
Like a lamb chop at Carl's house.
You got to admit that is the easiest chili to make because
Yeah.
I just take, and I gave a little bit. It's a tad spice, just like the teeniest, faintest bit of spice. And I said, "Come here, Bonbon."
Oh no!
And and I said, "Here, you want to try this?" Oh my! Talk about wolfing something down.
Oh, okay.
He liked it.
He loved it.
I thought you were going to say he didn't stop sneezing for 30 minutes.
No.
There's another vote for wolf chili.
Okay.
I don't recommend feeding it to your pets, actually, because I think it's not such a good idea. Okay, does anybody have another one or 10 million?
I bet Chris has about 5 more.
Oh, I have so many different
least.
ones. You know, one that I make when I'm like, Carl got me thinking of like stick on your rib kind of food is I make a potato ale soup.
Whoa.
And again, super simple. I take onions, fresh, potatoes peeled and, whatever light beer, not a heavy flavored beer, just a light flavored, like a light IPA or whatever. And again, throw it all in a pot. As I've gotten older, all that cooking I used to do, sauteing stuff I stopped that. Now I'm a dump in the pot and let it simmer kind of guy for soups now.
Me too.
So literally I chop my potatoes up a little bit so they cook a little faster. Throw it all in a pot, a little bit of garlic, and then I love my spice rack for this. I like to have a little yellow hue to it. So again, and it makes me feel good. Joanne was saying, I put a little turmeric in it, some garlic powder, some onion powder, and just, spice it up. And then I just let it simmer for about 45 minutes until everything gets soft. And then all I do is stick my immersion blender in there, hit it with a little cream or milk, and then, just take, your pre-shredded, shredded cheddar cheese that you get in the bag in the grocery store and just dump a couple handfuls right in there. And oh my gosh, salt, pepper, all it needs. And this is stick to your rib kind of.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
You can even serve it in like one of those big bread bowls and so warm and yummy.
I was going to say it kind of sounds like a great dip.
Oh yeah, and the more cheese you put in it, it gets stretchy and it just popped in my head when Carl was like, "Stick to your rib." Yeah, this is stick to your rib.
What if you put tortilla chips on the top?
Yes.
There you go.
Wouldn't that be good?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I actually did that with that wolf chili the last time I made it at home.
I was just going to say, why don't I do that?
I had some corn tortillas, and I just took them out of the fridge, and I cut them into thin strips, and I just threw them on a little, silicone pad in a sheet pan, threw it in the oven with some olive oil, salt, and pepper on top, cooked them until they got nice and crispy, and then I was having a couple people over, and I just put them on top with some more grated cheese and some chopped up onions and stuff. And the funniest part is I didn't say anything until the end of the meal, but everyone assumed I made the chili.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? They all just because I'm a chef. Oh, wow, this is the best chili. And I'm like, thank you. It's really good. It's very simple. Oh, you have to. I will. Best. Let's just eat first. And at the end, I went into the kitchen, grabbed the 2 cans out of the recycling container and brought them to the table.
That's funny. All right, so Jess, this is probably a good time to mention that Wolf Chili has not paid us, has not endorsed. We're not endorsing them. This just came up, right?
Yeah, when we love a product, I'm okay with giving a name brand because it's just there are some products that are just a little bit better than others, right?
Yeah.
And, Wolf Chili is one of, if you can find it in a grocery store or like Faith, order it online.
Well, this guy from Texas who would have these parties on on the beach in Milford would serve this chili at every party. And I would walk to Milford to get this chili. That's how I learned about it. It's not something that I, discovered in some special magazine or made up in my head or tried, on the fly. It's because of him that I know about this chili.
I have another one. Can I?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go.
All right. Butternut squash and sage soup.
Oh,
Yes.
this
that's-
time
yes.
of year.
This
fall in
time of
New
year,
England.
fall comes around, and people start clamoring
I'll be
for
making
this.
that.
So you start with, guess what? Chicken stock.
Yep,
Because
broth.
I already told you how to make that. I pull it from the freezer. I take it out.
Yep.
Cut up butternut squash. And, you want to peel it first, obviously. Yep. The peel doesn't work in a soup. And you cut it into cubes and just boil it down in the chicken stock, right? And if it gets too thick, you add a little more chicken stock. You just want to keep it at a good consistency. And it's really just that simple. Chicken stock, butternut squash. When it gets soft enough, you puree it. You could use a stick blender, or you could put it in your blender, or your food processor will probably not do as good a job. It'll be a little bit more coarse. But I actually broke down and bought a Vitamix because you got to have one, right?
Boy. You could use an old-fashioned potato masher.
That's
Yeah,
an
or a food
idea
mill.
too. Potato ricer, food mill.
Yeah, food
All
mill.
right, so you add all your stuff while it's in there: cream, garlic, and absolutely sage. And the best way, in my opinion, to prepare sage for a soup is to toast it in butter and get it crispy.
Wow.
Keep it going too, a little browning of that butter, and then you have like a brown butter sage.
Brown butter sage is like a
Gracious.
classic Italian sauce for raviolo and that kind of stuff.
Oh boy. Uh-oh.
That's fall
Okay.
food.
Put all that in. You're going to have some spices like cinnamon, some allspice, maybe a little nutmeg would be, actually, if you're going to use any of those warming spices, nutmeg would probably be the first one I'd reach for. And then, of course, salt and pepper to taste, and white pepper too. White pepper has become more of a pepper in my cooking lately than black pepper is. It just, I don't know. It just has
because
a
of the
flavor.
look?
No, it just has a different flavor.
Has a different
really
heat
like.
too, right? It hits you in a different spot in your throat, I find, right?
Wow.
And that's it.
The other thing, Carl, and this is what we do for our vegetarian friends. You can make this soup instead of using chicken broth. We make it with apple cider.
Hey, there you go.
Same recipe you have right
Bring a
there,
little sweet
adding
to
your
it.
spices and everything. And, and I also find that squash can be a little mealy too sometimes when you puree it. So I throw one potato in. To give it a little creaminess, but if you can't eat potatoes, that's not you don't
Sure,
have
a little
to, but
sweet potato maybe too.
Yeah, a little sweet potato.
Yep.
Because those potatoes have a little more creamy consistency than the squash do. And just one potato, no one would even know it was in there, or a sweet potato just kind of smooths it out a little bit.
That's a good tip.
You're making me think, Chris, about how you give me sauerkraut every year.
Yeah.
I make
You do?
sauerkraut. And
I just finished, yeah.
And then I bring it home and I put it in a big spaghetti pot and, with the sausages and, it's sort of give it that sort of Alsatian feel. Yes. And I know that's more a stew than a soup, but it is to die for. When you have real sauerkraut, it is just to
Nothing
die
like it.
for.
Yeah, we started making it again after all this time. So this year we usually, before the pandemic, we used to make about 50 gallons a season. And then we stopped making it because we weren't using as much. And this year we made 20 gallons just to get us started. So, and that usually lasts us right into the summer, because once it ferments, you just keep it in your refrigerator, and it'll last
forever.
for months in there. As long as you don't touch it with your fingers, always use so good.
Faith or Joanne, do you guys have fermenters? Have you seen these clay pots that you can use to ferment?
No.
Yeah, I had been given one as a gift, and I used it once. And the thing is, you got to kind of have a strong stomach, because it will develop some funk. I mean, it's basically, you just put cabbage and salt and layer it, and then you put this weight on it. And Chris is shaking his head. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. But it does get a little funk around the edges, but you kind of can't worry about it because
No,
the salt
that's
kills the
yeast
bacteria, and that is
working.
Yeah.
absolutely that's a sign that it's working.
Yeah. So Faith, when you make it, let me know how it comes out.
And you don't need the fancy fermenters. We do it in 5-gallon buckets, and we weigh it down with a plate, a clean what we've washed. We weigh it down with a plate, and then we cover it with a tablecloth. Everyone's like, no, you need the special fermenter so the air goes out but not back in, and all this stuff. And I'm like, I've been making sauerkraut for years. My mom used to make it in a bucket in the garage, and she wouldn't put, and she'd put a plate on top. And I'm not kidding you, on that top of the plate, she'd throw this rock from the garden. That, of course, that she washed, but it was a rock. And I'm like, okay, but you know what I mean? I think you have to be brave to make fermented food.
That's priceless.
Because it's going to bubble, it's going to ferment.
It's going to bubble. Yeah, it's right.
I want to see that recipe on the site.
Oh, sure. I'll send you my sauerkraut recipe.
No, we're going to call it rock soup.
No, for a weight. You know what we use for weights here? For a weight, we just take another smaller plastic bucket, fill it with cold water, put a lid on it, and that's our weight. That holds it. Because you got to keep the key to making sauerkraut. You have to keep it under that liquid that comes out of the cabbage.
I use a bag of old cell phones from the drawer of broken dreams.
There you go. As long as it's airtight or watertight.
You know what, Carl? That's the name of your cookbook, right
Yes.
there.
The drawer of broken dreams.
To be the drawer of broken dreams.
So how long did your car smell like sauerkraut when your mom used the garage?
Oh yes, the garage smelled like sauerkraut until it got colder, right? But it's funny because we made it in the fall, and then by the time it fermented, it was already winter. So then you had to get it out of there. But yeah, the whole garage would smell like sauerkraut.
The solution to that is to add more smells to the garage. So you got to cook kielbasa in there, and hot dogs, and all sorts of smoked meats and stuff. Now it tastes like wow, that's delicious.
Yeah,
you don't smell the trash anymore.
Well-used socks.
We had
to be in that soup.
I found in my last restaurant, I found the perfect place to ferment the sauerkraut, and it was right outside my partner Courtney's office, and that lasted for about 2 weeks. And then she found it, quite obviously by the aroma coming out of this little closet. But it literally was the perfect space because it was almost outside the building, like an underground kind of closet. And it was perfect temperature and everything. But no, we didn't make the whole fermentation in there because it does get, especially when you have like 20 buckets in there stacked.
Yeah. I've never made sauerkraut except for yours, Chris, that you give to me, that you've made. And then I just throw it in a pot and add things to it. So I'll have to give that a try. I have to get brave and give it a try. Hey, we've got to run.
Okay.
We've got to run. Okay. So you know where to find us now. As long as it says the all-new Faith Middleton Food Schmooze podcast, that's where we are. The all-new. And that's how you'll find us. And I'm with Carl Franklin, Joanne Church, and Chris Prosperi of Metro Beef Restaurant in Simsbury, Connecticut. And, of course, my beloved dog, Bonbon. Okay, We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, guys.